Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Jennifer DeMuth, and I am an assistant professor at the University of Ottawa in the Telfer School of Management. And my specific area of research and focus is on organizational behavior and human resource management, with a focus on how workplaces can better support employees at all times. But now we're looking at it through the lens of this crisis situation that we are all facing as individuals and as businesses. So one of the questions that I was asked to address today is, how can managers recognize the warning signs that an employee might be struggling with a mental health issue in a remote setting? And a lot of the work that my team and I have done has been really focused on face-to-face interactions in a workplace environment where managers have some regular contact with their employees in a traditional office environment. But some of the research is pointing in this direction of some of the warning signs that are evident in a face-to-face environment are very much the same warning signs that would be evident in a remote environment. Just the medium changes. So you may not be seeing the face-to-face, you may not be seeing changes in body language quite as easily, or tone of voice, or personal hygiene quite as easily as you might in a face-to-face situation, but those signs are still there. So what our research says is that there are 5 kind of categories of warning signs that managers should be looking for at any point, crisis situation or not. Performance issues, withdrawal, typically social withdrawal, attendance, emotional distress, as well as more extreme behaviors. So performance issues, this would be degradations in terms of quality or quantity. Withdrawal, people who, they're changing their social patterns. So keeping a closed door when they normally have an open one, eating lunch on their own. Emotional distress, things like crying at work or complaining about high levels of stress or workload. Attendance issues, so more frequently being absent or being sick, as well as extreme behaviors, talking about suicide, potentially talking about self-harm or intending to harm others. So most of these warning signs are designed to be picked up in a normal situation, which we're not in right now, and in a face-to-face environment. But as I said earlier, those warning signs are still going to be present in remote settings. Managers are just going to have to be a little bit more creative about how they identify those warning signs. So when we're talking about performance, this would be still looking at changes in quality or quantity. Right now, we're in a time of transition. So performance, we should expect it not to look the same as it did 2 months ago, but keeping a pulse on what performance is looking like longer term. Withdrawal. So this is looking for behavioral changes that suggest that an employee might be pulling back. So the length of their emails might go down. So someone who's normally kind of verbose sends longer emails, sending one word or one line responses. This may be an indication that they are pulling back, that they're disengaging, perhaps their workload is high, perhaps they're procrastinating, perhaps they have too much going on in terms of work-life conflict. Basically, it's a signal that something is changing and you should pay attention to that change. When it comes to emotional distress, it's interesting because a lot of these signs that we would observe in person are going to be very similar in a remote environment. But managers are going to have to look for things like body language, like tone of voice, like facial expressions. So if possible, using video conference is really going to make a difference in terms of being able to catch those subtle cues. So someone saying, yeah, I'm fine, sure, the social distancing is difficult, but we're managing, we're getting by, is different from someone saying, yeah, yeah, it's been tough, but yeah, we're managing. Two different responses. With that second response, that's where managers should be looking to follow up with a, hey, I know this is hard on everybody. How are you doing? What can I do to support you? Attendance issues. This is a tricky one, especially in the climate that we're in now. But largely, attendance issues might be taking additional sick leave, might be frequently absent, frequently sick, things like that. In this situation, you may see employees who are responding to emails or picking up the phone at all hours of the day. That can also be a recipe for burnout down the road. So being in tune with whatever your organization's policies are is really important. Um, and being in tune with your employees and what their typical work patterns are going to look like, and especially extreme behavior. So that's that fifth category. Rare that an employee is going to disclose suicidal thoughts, or what we call suicidal ideation. But if they do, whether that's over the phone or in a video conference or one-on-one video chat, doing your best to be empathetic, kind, compassionate, and keep them on the phone as best you can, or direct them towards resources that are going to be able to be helpful in that moment. So whether that's a 1-800 hotline number, a suicide helpline, there are lots of those right now that are advertising, and there are people answering the phones, there are people answering the emails, as well as employee assistance programs. And that's something that you as a manager can get help from as well when navigating some of these warning signs. So being able to recognize any of these warning signs, regardless of what else is going on in the world, comes down to being proactive as a manager, to understanding what your employees' typical behaviors look like. Because there are going to be people who are always sending the one word or one line emails, and that's their version of typical or normal, and that's fine. So that isn't an indicator for them of a warning sign. So you have to know your people to know when there is a change in behavior. And I can't emphasize that enough, that these are only warning signs when there is a pattern of behavioral change, when there are patterns of performance or patterns of withdrawal, patterns of emotional distress or attendance that would indicate that an employee is struggling. So really keeping that in mind, that there is a level of proactivity that is required, and keeping in best touch as you can through video conference is better than teleconference, because you're getting to see people. They can put up fancy backgrounds behind them to help reduce the potential social phobias we have with letting people into our homes. And especially right now where we are working from home, that's a reality. So letting people know that they can put up backgrounds so that it is just them, so that they're not embarrassed about what their house might look like or how clean it is, or whether, in my case, there's a toddler running around just a few feet away. Those are all things that managers can do to make it easier on themselves to recognize warning signs, and to make employees feel more comfortable about being in touch in more personal ways, where we're letting our coworkers and our managers into our homes.